Welcome to Vigorous Nutrition. I'm Coach Steve. Let's talk about carb cycling. All right, so I'm doing ketogenic myself most of the time, but sometimes I do carb cycling, and that's always during the off season. So carb cycling you can approach in a lot of different ways. Some people do like a medium, high, and low day, and they cycle through that. So let's say your average carbohydrate intake is at 300 grams per day. A high day would be 450 grams. A normal day would be 300 grams, and a low day would be 150 grams. Yeah, and then you start high, low, medium, or low, medium, high, and you cycle through that on every 3 days. Works well, works for some people, doesn't work for everybody. What I found to be more beneficial is to have carbohydrates based on activity level, and I do that with most of my clients, whether that's in the off season or during contest prep or cutting phase. Is that you assess which body parts are training, right? So let's say you do push-pull legs in the off season. On a leg day, you eat more carbohydrates. You don't change your protein or fat intake. You just eat more carbs and more calories that day. You eat because you're expending more. Yeah, so you're keeping your glycogen stores sufficient. Now, I don't believe in chronically saturated glycogen stores because that, of course, leads to insulin resistance and body fat accrual. So I prefer to keep everything around 80 to 90%. Yeah, so you're pumped to the max during the workout, but you might lose a little bit of pump during, a couple hours later when you deflate a little bit. So you can see now I'm a little bit deflated, but believe me, if I do a couple pumping sets, chest is here and shoulders are there. Maybe not to that extent, or maybe a little bit more. Anyway, so that's how you can track if you're not 100% glycogen loaded all the time. So you do carb cycling in the off season based on activity level. Let's say you do push-pull legs. That's your method of training during the off season. Push day, let's say 500 carbs. Pull day, 700 carbs. Leg day, 1,000 carbs. Yeah, just an example. Yeah, or maybe 800 carbs. It depends on how big your body parts are, which body parts you're trying to improve, and of course, how big you are and how much you can eat. So you slowly increase that. So it's still a low, medium, high day, but if you change your body parts around, or you say, well, my legs are already this big, and I need to focus more on back, then you increase the food intake and of course the intensity on back day. So let's say you want to bring up your back, and the intensity and the training duration and the volume is a lot higher on back day, maybe the P&D intake as well. Push day will be 500 carbs, back day will be 1,000, and then leg day will be 700. Or maybe you skip leg day. Yeah, some people need to. Some people need to exclude legs from their training completely, or only do extensions because their quads are so good, they're taking nutrients away from other body parts. So let's say that's the case. One body part just gets excluded. I didn't train my back for like 2 years. It was no need. It was already wide as it could be. So why bother, And stiff-legged deadlifts was enough to keep my thickness going. So again, you have to go by which body part you try to improve. And on the days you try to improve body parts, you try to increase caloric intake from the carbs because the workout is more intense. You need more energy. You need more recovery through, stimulation of insulin by eating more carbohydrates, which increases recovery in that sense. So let's say you do a 5-day split. You got arms, legs, off. Well, you don't take legs, arms, shoulders, back, for example. Yeah, you want to bring up your arms. You want to bring up your back. Everything else is good. 300 carbs on chest day, 500 carbs on leg day, 500 carbs on arm day, 300 carbs on shoulder day, and maybe 500-600 carbs on back day. Yeah, you have to figure out how many carbs you need per body part to facilitate and allow for the maximum amount of volume you can recover from. Yeah? Making sure you don't reach 100% saturated glycogen stores. And it's a very big mouthful, and usually we have coaches taking care of this because it's pretty complicated. But when you carefully monitor your glycogen stores in the off season, you don't lose insulin sensitivity. You don't build up insulin resistance, which means your off season can be way longer. And of course, you can only build so much muscle at a certain amount of time. So instead of force feeding yourself and losing insulin sensitivity, allowing for body fat accrual, setting you back, for a longer diet and all the problems that come along with that. If you can extend your off season to maybe 10 months, 1 year, and you didn't gain so much body fat because you didn't lose insulin sensitivity, you can gain a lot more muscle compared to doing a dirty bulk, losing insulin sensitivity after 3 months, doing a mini cut, losing a little bit of size and strength in the process, and then doing another dirty bulk. You're going to end up probably about the same muscle size, but way fatter, way fatter at the end of it, and then you need a longer diet afterwards. So staying lean in the off season can be done with carb cycling. So carb cycling doesn't only have to be during contest prep. When you carb cycle based on activity during the off season, you're going to stay leaner. You're just going to make as much progress, and you learn how to carefully assess how much each body part requires, in terms of energy consumption. Because carbs mostly provide energy and, of course, micronutrients. But it's not like a protein or a fat where they actually contribute to, directly contribute to muscle cells, muscle growth. Glycogen, okay, it's saturated with glycogen, but it's just volumization, right? Same as sodium, same as water, same as glycerol, same as creatine, same as GH, same as anadrol. Yeah, they all volumize the muscle, and glycogen is one part of that. Of course, when your glycogen stores are not chronically depleted, they are sufficient, your body doesn't tap into the protein for energy. Right? So it's a protein sparing process by having full or close to full glycogen stores. And if they're sufficient to provide the majority of the energy while you work out, but not too much that you lose insulin sensitivity, you're always burning carbs. You're not burning any protein, probably a little bit of fat, but not too much. And the heart still works predominantly on fat. So you'll burn a little bit of fat through that process. But as long as you don't oversaturate your carb intake and burn it away during the workout and replenish afterwards, but not over-replenish, that it spills over into the body fat stores, you don't get too much body fat. And then you can stay very, very lean. But as soon as you start prepping, you lose a significant amount of water weight, be cleaning up the diet and reducing the calories a little bit. But since your body is so used to the carbohydrates, the deficit that you create by reducing carbohydrate intake is going to come from body fat. So you get a lot of fat loss in return. And that's how you basically stay in shape in the off season. So carb cycling approach that most people only do during a contest prep or cutting phase, you can apply to the off season as well. And that's how you stay lean. Yeah? I hope that sends you in the right direction. You only got to figure out which carb sources you can consume, whether that's rice, pasta, quinoa, sweet potato, normal potato, cereal, bread. Everybody works differently, so you got to figure out which carbohydrate source you can digest well, because when you get up to the 500, 700, 1,000 milligrams of carbs, 1,000 grams of carbs per day, digestion is very, very, very important, and the last thing you want is to sit here, with a stomach that full, bloated, gassy, burping, and fermenting in your stomach, when the carb could be a different source, digesting well, and traveling to your muscle, filling up glycogen stores, and fueling your workout. Yeah, so that's another subject for another video. Hope it helps. Consider carb cycling in the off season. I'll see you guys in the next video.